Machi has swing habits. Você foi por sua habits. Deixa-lhe foi na dia.
Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and welcome to my 100% walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for Nintendo Wii. So like I was saying at the end of the last video, one of the really important things that you want to do here is you want to talk with every single owl statue. Now whether or not you actually save at them, it doesn't really matter, but you do have to talk with them because once you do so, it will activate the owl statue and now it's glowing and stuff, and that means that you can now teleport to it from now on. You want to jump to the rope here and then swing the Wiimote to make you swing forward and then release with A when you're ready. Now here we have another new enemy obstacle thing, I'm not sure what you'd call it, but I'm not actually sure about the name of these enemies. I'm pretty sure it's called a Mew, M-Y-U. Anyways, these little guys will latch onto you if you get too close and they'll flash for a little bit and then they'll explode. You can get rid of them by running, you can roll, or you can perform a spin attack, and those are a couple different ways to get rid of them. You'll also notice that some of these trees have this like hotspot looking thing. Now this little glowing portion will actually give you rupees if you can successfully hit it. Now different ones of these will actually give different amounts of rupees. I'm pretty sure they only give you 5 rupees at most, I think. Some of them might give you 20 rupees, I doubt it though. But anyways, they're not really super worth your time in my opinion, but you can go ahead and smack them if you want to. But that's the idea, is you have to smack them at just the right time as the bamboo is falling. Up ahead we have some more bokoblins, and I'll try to show different techniques for dealing with them, and I actually tried to do a Skyward Strike here. I think it didn't work at all. I think I attacked them a little bit too soon before it was fully charged. But anyways, you can walk away from bokoblins and start charging your sword, and then just turn around and slash, and it will hit a whole bunch of them at once. However, they can block it, so that can be unfortunate. Now again, if all else fails, you can always use a shield bash. It works really good to defeat bokoblins.
Machi has Skyward Sword. The best is what I miss.
I find this part humorous because when Fi talks about the dowsing readings leading to the Kikwi, then she's like, what, Zelda's readings was from the Kikwi? And you're like, what? Is it Zelda? And she's like, no, I think there's only a 5% chance that this Kikwi is in fact Zelda. So don't worry guys, there's still a chance. There is still hope. Never give up. I'd like to try and choose all the funny options for this walkthrough if I can. Now, when you get to these quicksandy looking ramps, whatever, you want to actually dash up them, otherwise you'll fall back down. You need to have a pretty decent amount of stamina to do that. And oftentimes when there's stamina fruit, by the way, even if you're like totally out of stamina, you can use the last little sliver of your stamina to roll into the stamina fruit. This will instantly replenish it. So you want to run off to the right and activate this owl statue. Again, you cannot use any of these owl statues unless you talk with them, so just make sure you do that. You don't have to save every time or anything, but just make sure you talk to it. Now up ahead you want to bonk into this wall by rolling into it by shaking your nunchuck while sprinting, and this will allow the vine that is up above to be extended down. Now there's actually a couple different ways to make this fall down, but I recommend you do this because it gives you a nice shortcut early on. Now normally they're expecting you to roll into the base of the tree if you're going to do it that way, but if you get too close to the sand here, then Fi will actually whine at you and tell you to go back to hunt for the Kikwi. So that's why I did it up there on the upper ledge instead. It's actually a speedrunning tactic for this portion of the game, is to make that vine deploy early that way. Although, and I have speedrun this game a couple times, although I don't really speedrun very often. It's not really I don't know, I prefer to 100% games in general, it's just what I like to do. Now, the Kikwi, if you douse for it, you'll notice that it's hiding behind mushrooms, and it'll always move to the opposite side. I don't believe you can actually chase it in time. It always runs away from you. I don't think you can sneak up behind it either. You might be able to, actually. I didn't think to test that. So you might be able to sneak up from behind and then run towards it and roll towards it. You might be able to get to it in time. But otherwise, you can just smack the mushroom itself. And you can do so by either slashing it with your sword or using a Skyward Strike, or rolling into it as well will also work. So you just sprint towards it and then use your nunchuck to shake that, and that'll make the Kikwi run away. So something you want to do when you're in this area is keep an eye out for glowing mushrooms. They look all sparkly, and if you see one, you can slash it with your sword, and then you can scoop up the glowing mushroom spores with your bottles, and that's another option. You can do interesting thing with glowing mushroom spores, but I'll talk more about that later, but just as a note, you want to keep an eye out for them. Now, you can defeat the Dekubabas if you want, they're optional, but if you're struggling with Dekubabas in general, these ones you don't have to fight at all, but if you're struggling with them, you can always defeat them from range with Skyward Strikes from the correct direction, or you can use Shield Bashes. That's all we had to do here, though, so continue on and meet up with the Kikwi at long last, who has stopped running.
마다 사회 것을 세르하리소. 어시에릭 시파 세르소스. 교수의 산원하유스. 어시주스 이조비오스. 자자자인의 헤르비오스.
Kikwis are so adorable. I feel like in real life, though, they have, like, their survival instincts are so terrible. They'd probably just get consumed by all the various predators. It's kind of funny, like, the very thing they're worrying about, like, the way they're going about it is just so bad. You want to push this log off to the edge here, and this creates a shortcut. There's often an amber relic underneath it. I just wanted to show this is the direction we came from, so we traveled through all this area, and this is the shortcut back to where we came from. A lot of these shortcuts have amber relics underneath them, so you want to grab all of those real quick. Now, to continue onwards, we're looking to go to the Elder, who is all the way up there. Now, I did bonk down this this tree earlier, so you can do that. Now, if you do want to climb up this thing, just know that there is a Dekubaba in the way, and you can actually kill it with these rocks, which is just kind of fun, just because it's different. If it drops something, you can run down the sand here to get that as well. So this is one way to get deeper into the woods, is to climb up this little sandhill, but you can also climb these little walls over here, so just dash up them and this will lead to a new area. Now, this particular area also has a new enemy in it called an Octorok, and these are kind of interesting because they've been in a lot of older Zelda games, but this is one of the first more like recent reiterations of them. And you can reflect their attacks by either using a shield bash or you can stab with your sword. Now, you do have to make sure that you are... So there I was trying to stab. My calibration wasn't very slick there, so I had to readjust for that. Apparently I'm just killing myself though. Anyways, so if you use a well-timed stab, that will also work, but just generally speaking though, a shield bash is significantly easier to pull off in that particular case. So here I'm just showing that if your calibration is weird, you just use several sword slashes, so left and right as well as up and down will fix your calibration. Now, I did mention this in a previous video. The one thing you want to avoid with shield bashes is don't just keep mashing the, just keep punching like crazy with the nunchuck. What you want to do is use shield bashes occasionally like this. If you have some pauses in between and then do it at good timing, it actually works significantly better. Like seriously, if you just mash it like crazy, it's like your window of opportunity is something like 0.5 seconds or something like that. But meanwhile, if you use a well-timed one, it's more like 1.5 seconds or something like that. It's ridiculous. Like, it's so much more effective. Anyways, from this upper platform, you want to use the tightrope. You have to tilt the Wiimote straight up, and then just tilt it back and forth to keep your balance, to adjust for it, and then go across. You can actually sprint with the C button a little bit. But this is I'm just showing on my map real quick. That's how you get here. Now, there happens to be a horned rhino beetle, or woodland rhino beetle, I think is what it's called, on the wall here. So I bonked into it with a roll to get it real quick. One of the most effective attacks for Bokoblins is actually just to run at them with sprinting with A and then just slash your sword. And this will perform a jump attack. And it's super effective. There's actually 2 different ways to perform a jump attack, and I'll explain the other one here in a little while. Now you'll see the Kikwi Elder across the distance, which is where we want to go. Now you can use the vines if you roll into that tree. That's another way to get that down real quick. So you can get across to him right now, which is our destination. However, most people don't have access to that. I'm going to continue on the long way just to show how to do that. There's some more Bokoblins here. Again, a running, sprinting jump attack is the easiest way to take care of these guys. Here's another Octorok. I'm going to go ahead and use a shield bash on them. Boom, there you go. Super easy. So well-timed shield bash is like the best way to deal with them. There's often an Amber Relic up here in the water. There isn't right here, right now. It's kind of some RNG. RNG stands for random number generator, by the way. But another good way to deal with Bokoblins is Skyward Strikes. And you can always like charge it and then just like backflip or run away. But when you're a little bit of a distance away from Bokoblins, they're usually vulnerable. So if you just back up a little bit and then either use spin attacks, like right as they're getting into your distance, or right into your range, and that works really well, or Skyward Strikes or something, it works so much better. Even regular attacks, honestly, you can get past their defense by just backing up a little bit. So grab the shortcut off to the right as well as the Amber Relic underneath it, and then talk to the owl statue, or bird statue. You know you've played too much Majora's Mask when, right? So onward, there's another Octorok. I'm going to use a shield bash, and then I was going to use a stab on the other guy, but my calibration was just weird. Like, this keeps happening. I'm thinking that what's happening, there's 2 possibilities I'm thinking. My controller keeps getting uncalibrated. What happens is it almost like recalibrates to wherever my controller is currently facing, like every few seconds, or like every 9 seconds it recalibrates to recenters to whatever my Wiimote is currently facing. So if I'm like pointing off to the right, and then it recenters it, then suddenly like my far right is suddenly the center of my screen, if that makes sense, which is really weird. There's actually a stool here so you can heal yourself if you like. You know, the controls in Skyward Sword are, like, they're amazing. I think they're awesome. When they work, they're great. If they don't work and you can't rely on them, then it's really annoying. It's super obnoxious. And this was actually the first playthrough I've ever played where I currently had a bunch of issues with my controls. And I don't know, maybe that's a good thing. Like, at least now I know, you know? I guess for years I just assumed that people were confused about the controls, like they just didn't get it, but this is the first time I've ever done a playthrough where it constantly uncalibrated. I've never experienced that before. Usually it works great and it's super effective. I mean, occasionally I have to fix it a little bit, but here it's just really wonky. If you are having issues with your controls, you need to perform a bunch of vertical and horizontal sword slashes and then I'll fix it. Continuing onwards, so you slash that, the base of that vine, and that will allow you to swing back and forth. So grab onto it, swing across, and meet up with Bucha, the Kikwi Elder.
Oh, wow, 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 wow.
Saya lihat mas no serio lobo. Vamos a nuestra sesión. Recite the next post. Gracias a ustedes, vida. No me hables hacer hablos. Es una certeza este filme.
So technically talking with Bucha at this point is optional. You can actually just go find the Kikwis and that would have been fine. However, talking with him allows you to have access to dowsing. Now one of them you'll notice is on the other side of this tree. You want to crawl through this hole and you can actually roll through holes and stuff, and that's pretty effective as well. Now if you haven't gotten a fairy already, one of these like pumpkin-y looking things here, these squashes, I guess they must be squashes, that's what they are. You smack the squashes and it has a fairy in it. So you'll notice here like I'm leaning really far to the right when I get on those vines, and that is because my controller is calibrated to the far right. So if that's happening to you where you can't go on the vines very well at all, you just need to recalibrate your sword. Now you can smack these, I think they're called Mew, I believe, but these little like hitchhiker things will, you can smack them off with your Skyward Strikes. Otherwise, a good way to deal with them is you can either sprint across the ropes, will make them fall off. Otherwise, another way of dealing with them is you can let yourself hang down, and you can swing your legs by swinging the Wiimote, and that will also make them all fall off you as well. Jump down into this area, and we're actually ambushed with a bunch of Bokoblins. Now you'll see that one of them is a Bokoblin leader that has one of these monster horns, and they'll blow it and it summons Bokoblins. Now in this particular case, it doesn't summon more, but occasionally later ones can continually summon Bokoblins, so you want to deal with the ones that have the horns right away. Now do keep in mind though, if one of them does have a horn, you want to kind of keep an eye out for when you defeat it, because it can drop the horn. You want to pick that up because it's a nice treasure. It's fairly rare at this point. The only way for us to get it otherwise is just through chests at this point in the game. Yeah, I would say though that spin attacks are my favorite way of dealing with Bokoblins. You just want to make sure you have enough stamina to support it. There I tried to backflip, it didn't really work to get away from his attack. Now, something else you can do in this area is you can run through the heart flowers to get your health back. Otherwise though too, after you're done with combat, there is actually a stool here that you can use to replenish your health as well. So here, Fi gives you a clue about what to do. She says that you should press the 2 button to see what your available options are of ways to expedite the Kikwi's dismount of the tree. So the only other available options we have is we can roll. So roll into the tree, this will smack the Kikwi and make him fall down. This will also lower the vine that allows us to continue on to the next area. So next, go ahead and grab onto the vine and then swing out of here and then push off the log to create a shortcut back here. Now you could have gotten a lot of these Kikwis in a bunch of different orders. However, this one you can only reach after you have reached Bucha's platform, the Kikwi Elder. So I like to start with that one and then circle my way around and get the other Kikwis and then come back. Now if you're confused about them, you can just use the dowsing option to find out where they are, the remaining ones. Now here we have a new enemy. This is called a Gwei. They've been in a lot of different Zelda games and they often try to steal your rupees. So these ones will swing around and they'll actually steal rupees from you. If you defeat them in time, you can actually get all your rupees back. Funnily enough, you can actually use shield bashes on them, which is a little odd animation, but makes them fall to the ground. You can use a fatal blow to finish them off. Gweis do have another attack in which they will poop on you, and this actually, I think it just does damage over time, but to get rid of it you have to roll, and so that's a little bit odd. Their animation before they use it is also kind of similar to their regular attack, so you might have to just, you won't realize they're doing that, they'll suddenly swoop up and poop on you instead. But just be careful with Gweis, because that's a thing. You can also defeat them with Skyward Strikes if you like as well, to defeat them while they're flying around, but the shield bash or just regular attacks once you get close enough is more effective. Now Gweis are a waste of time, however I would say to keep an eye out for glittering mushrooms around this area. You want to climb up on top of these logs, you'll see that the dowsing option says that there is a Kikwi up here on this upper ledge, so climb up here. You can actually just use a whole bunch of stamina because we have a stamina fruit along the way. Now to slash all of these bushes, there's two options. You can either use spin attacks and use a lot of stamina, or you can actually use Skyward Strikes really well as well. So if you line up yourself up well, you can technically like uncover this Kikwi in just like a single Skyward Strike, and that works really well. When fighting Bokoblins, even if they see you, like, as long as you, like, start attacking them, like, immediately, you usually can get past their defenses. So if they're all startled, they're like, Meow! As soon as you see them, you can actually just start smacking them instantly and you get past their defenses right away. But otherwise, generally speaking, I'd like to use the dash attack if I can. That dashing jump attack is just so effective. These guys are all optional, you don't have to fight them. I do like to roll into this tree whenever I'm going past because there's often a woodland rhino beetle on here, at least one, sometimes there's even like 3. And this tree will often drop the squashes as well, and those often have seeds in them, although we can't actually get seeds at the moment. Our next goal is to go through this hole, and like I was saying before, you can roll through these holes to make it go a little bit faster as well. And over here you want to run off to the far right, and there's actually another log we can push down to get another shortcut. I think this last one is probably the trickiest one. There's actually a hole here that you can fall down, but if you douse for it, you'll see that there's a Kikwi like below a little ways, but if you look from below, we're way too low to get to it, and it's like this upper platform, and you're trying to figure out how to get to it. But that's how you do that, is you fall through this hole, follow the little path, there's a Kikwi over here. This particular one does not let you talk with him, but instead you have to pull up on him by pressing A. Once you've spoken with all of the Kikwis and have them all marked on your map, then Fi will tell you to go speak with Bucha, the Kikwi Elder. You can get there a couple different ways. Now, I like to use this shortcut right here that we created by rolling into that tree earlier, and this is the fastest way to get to Bucha. However, if that doesn't work, you can always travel to the far south and use that vine instead that we originally used to find Bucha. So this northern vine is the one I just used, however, otherwise you'll just have to go down here and use this vine instead if you don't have access to this one. So that's fine, either way. Once you've found all of the Kikwis, then go speak with Bucha, and like I said before, you don't actually have to talk with him before this. If this is the first time that you're speaking with him after you've already spoken with all the other Kikwis, it will still complete the quest. Alright, so in order to get this, you have to dash up Bucha's body, so just use A to do so, and then once you get up there, grab the Slingshot, which allows us to shoot Deku Seeds out that will stun most enemies. It will defeat weaker enemies like keys in particular, but more difficult enemies it only stuns them or does nothing. Now, the Slingshot is actually pretty powerful, and it's effective throughout the entire game. In fact, even late game, it's very useful in specific situations, and there's some areas where it's even like way overpowered actually if you can think to use it. So there's actually some really interesting ways you can use it, and I'll try and point out some of those as we get to them throughout the game. At this point, you can technically shoot the vines off to the side while you're still on Bucha's back, and if you do so, then his dialogue changes, and he's like, oh, you couldn't wait, and you just already shot the thing I was about to tell you to shoot. But actually, I already rolled into this tree to make the vines deploy instead, so it's just kind of funny. His dialogue's slightly off because of that. He assumes that you shot it. But anyways, yeah, if you haven't shot it, that's how you do this, is you press and hold B to select which item you want to use, like tilt down towards it, then it'll select it. And now you can just press B whenever you want to toggle back and forth between either using your sword or using your B button items. So you want to shoot at the vines, this will deploy it if it isn't already deployed, and then you can continue on towards the temple looking thing to the north. This actually isn't a temple, it's just like a little viewing platform is what they call it. And you'll see that our dowsing option shows Zelda went towards the temple to the far north, which is what Bucha told us. So up ahead, once you get to the viewing platform, there is actually a bird statue here, and Fi has some dialogue in which she suggests that you save here before you continue on to the temple deep in the woods. Now, sort of funnily enough, if you don't actually talk with this owl statue, or bird statue, I'm gonna keep doing that, I know it. If you don't talk to the bird statue right now, then, and you come back here later in the game, Fi still has the dialogue, even though we've already completed the forest temple, which is kind of weird. So anyways, save at the statue or just talk to it regardless, just so you have access to it, and then continue onwards. There is some vines here that are leading onward that you need to smack with the slingshot in order to progress. So go ahead and grab that and then swing through to get to that upper platform. So Fi has some quick dialogue explaining that you can press down on the D-pad to recenter your screen, which is super useful anytime you're using any ranged weapon. But also she says that you can toggle back and forth between your items really quickly. After you've already selected which one you want, you just press the button real quick to switch back and forth between using your ranged weapons and using your sword. So go ahead and grab the vines and swing up to the upper platform and continue on towards the deep woods. Now, whenever you see bokoblins that have bandanas on their head, that is an indication that they also have monster horns. So this particular one has a monster horn. It will summon more guys if it sees you. Now, if you defeat it quickly enough, then it won't be able to summon more guys. Now, you can do this by either hitting it with a slingshot. Right there, I was shooting next to it just to show that you can reach that far, but I was doing that intentionally. Otherwise, you can run up to it. So if you dash towards it and use a jump attack while sprinting, that would defeat it real quick. Otherwise, if you're not fast enough, then it will summon some more bokoblins. So here I was letting them summon on purpose. Now, some interesting thing you can see real quick is I just wanted to show how these bees will actually switch targets. If you run up to a beehive and then run over to a bokoblin, they'll actually attack the bokoblin instead, which is just a distraction. They don't actually do any damage to it or anything, so they can't defeat it, but I just think it's fun to watch. Now this is actually the best place in the game to get hornet larvae, so I recommend you do that whenever you pass through here. So grab the goodies along the side. There's often an amber relic in the grass here, but go ahead and roll into the tree here. And this often makes, there's a horned rhino beetle or whatever, or a woodland rhino beetle that fell behind. I didn't actually see that at the time. The squash here in trees always drops deku seeds for your slingshot, which is great. But go ahead and roll into this. And the bees, unfortunately, we don't have a good way of dealing with them, so you just have to run away, or hornets rather. So run away from the hornets, but you want to get the hornet larva every time you come here by just rolling into trees to make the beehive fall down, and you can grab that. So if you press 2 at any time, you can also switch back and forth between your equipment screen and your treasure and bug screen. So I'm just showing that we have hornet larvae here, and you want to make sure you get as much of it as you can. Now, unfortunately, this particular beehive does not actually land in a place where you can do it. If you're standing too close, there will be more bees, so you have to run away to get far enough away from them. Unfortunately, just running really far is all you can do at this point in the game. But you do need them to leave you alone, because if you try and go across those tight ropes and you still have bees following you, then they will knock you down and you will fall over. As always, make sure that your controller is calibrated good enough for this, otherwise you will fall down. Now, something interesting to know, though, is if you get too close to this bokoblin, or this bokoblin up ahead patrols back and forth, and if it gets too close to you while it sees you here, it'll actually follow you out onto the rope. This doesn't really happen very often, but if it does, then here's how you deal with that. You can actually shake the controller, and I actually think this is really hard. I think what it is that you just, like, even though you're holding the controller straight up, you just kind of, like, thrust it down, almost like you're pounding the bottom of the controller onto something, like that, and that will make Link, like, do this little hop thing while he's still on the rope. But I think it's a lot easier to just let yourself, like, tilt really far to the side on purpose until you're hanging on by your hands, and then you can swing the remote, and then Link will swing his legs, and this will knock the bokoblin off instead. So I think that's significantly easier. Over to the left, there is another shortcut to get you back to the earlier portions of the deep woods. However, it doesn't really matter too much because we have some bird statues up ahead. That just makes it a lot easier. Like, it's just easier to teleport to those, so there's not really a point to go back to that previous area. I will say that that is a good place to farm for hornet larvae in particular. However, it's faster to just get there using the viewing platform bird statue instead. So, I don't know, it's just easier that way. Now, if you accidentally Z-target Gorko here, he'll call out to you up on the upper platform, but we can't really do anything with him. You can either attack or run past the Octorok here on the corner, and then you want to climb this little lip here to grab onto that. And remember that you can use a little bit of your stamina to jerk back and forth. You do this by swinging the Wiimote when you're on one of those flat portions. It doesn't work when you're at the corners. Now, up ahead, we have some more of those Mew on these tight ropes. You want to use either the Slingshot, or you can actually use Skyward Strikes to hit the close ones, actually. Regularly, you can't actually hit all those Mew with single Skyward Strikes. However, if you're playing in Hero Mode, you actually have increased range on that, and I'll talk more about that later. So if you're playing in Hero Mode, you can actually use Skyward Strikes to hit all of those Mew from here. I'm going to go ahead and defeat the next Vocal Blend. If you're not close enough, it might not shake him off enough, but just keep doing that. You might have to get back on the rope to replenish your stamina, though, so that's sort of scary. But anyways, here I think what happened is my controller got super uncalibrated, and unfortunately there is no way to recalibrate it while you're on the rope, so I just decided I was just going to go ahead and get back up on land, and you'll see once I slash my sword, sure enough, it's like all wonky. But you know, slashing your sword at basic enemies, as long as you're just kind of flailing, like it doesn't really matter so much if it's uncalibrated or not, because regular horizontal and vertical slashes will just recalibrate your controller anyways, so the way I figured it was I'm just going to use regular attacks and it'll be fine. Now you can also use your Deku Seeds to stun a lot of enemies too, so like here I was using it to stun the Deku Baba, and you'll see like my sword again is tilted off to the far right. That's what I was saying, like that's why I was tilting off to the right when I was on the vines a little bit ago, or whatever, yeah, on the tightrope, that's what I meant to say. So here we have another rope that is hanging down, and you want to jump across to it and then swing. You can actually make it with a single swing. A lot of these ropes you have to swing multiple times, but up ahead we have a new enemy called a Quadra Baba. Now Quadra Babas have more health than a regular Deku Baba, and they also can change directions, so they can be vertical or horizontal, and that can be a little bit of a pain. Now before you leave, you do want to swing over to the far left, where there is actually a small chest containing 20 rupees. So I did play through the game a couple times just like to refresh myself and like write down notes and stuff like that. And I think I did a pretty good job finding most of the hidden rupees in the game, but I'm sure I missed some. So if there's especially bigger chunks of rupees, like 100 rupees or 200 rupees somewhere that I missed throughout the walkthrough, if you guys see that happen and you're like, wait, you missed something and it's right there and it's awesome, then please let me know in the comments, because, and then I'll either, if it's really helpful or you leave a comment that's super funny, whatever, I might just pin it and that'll be the top comment right there and then everybody can see it. However, if there's like a bunch of information, like there's an area where I missed a whole bunch of rupees, whatever, maybe I will post a comment and I'll put the culmination of everybody's comments, you know what I mean? I'll put them all together in one place so that people can see that information. So when you're watching these videos, be sure to check the comments before you move on to the next video, because there might be some helpful information there that I might have missed. So yeah, if there's like cool stuff you have to share, whether it's super funny or like really interesting or like really helpful information, then like please let me know and share with the group, and that'd be sweet. And I'll try to put emphasis on that so that people watching these videos in the future can get even more info out of it. I really love like community efforts like that. I think it's awesome. So once you get to this upper ledge, then the game forces you to speak with Gorko, and he will not let you leave until you activate this Goddess Cube. So how you do this is you point the controller straight up to charge up a Skyward Strike, and unfortunately my controller was way uncalibrated right now. But oh well, whatever. I ended up like pointing it in weird directions. I think I ended up, a lot of times my controller kept calibrating to behind me and stuff. So I was just kind of working with it at the moment. But anyways, you want to Skyward Strike the cube. This will send it to the sky where it becomes a chest that we can now open. There's all these unactivated chests in the sky, but after you've activated them, you can now open them and get the treasure inside. So we're going to do that here in just a little bit, actually. So you want to keep an eye out for Goddess Cubes when you're here on the surface, and you want to activate them because it leads to really cool prizes. Now, I will mention what each one of these are as we get to them. This first Goddess Cube leads to an Adventure Pouch slot, which increases the number of items you can carry, which is actually like a pretty beefy upgrade early on in the game. You want to go ahead and push the log off the ledge here to create a shortcut, although it doesn't really matter too much because we're usually warping to this bird statue up ahead, so the shortcut doesn't really matter too much. Hop down, we have the Goddess Cube number 2, and this leads to a piece of heart. This actually brings us to a grand total of 3 pieces of heart that we have access to in the sky, and there's actually 1 piece of heart inside the temple. So if you get all 4, that gives us an entire another heart container in time for the Skyview Temple boss, which is awesome. So we're actually going to go do that, and as you head towards this bird statue, then Fi highly recommends that you go back to the sky and prepare. She recommends that you get some heart potion from the shop, as well as like repairing your shield or getting a shield if you don't have one yet. And by the way, if you never selected your shield with the minus button, you have to actually like equip your shield, otherwise you can't use it. So make sure you have a shield equipped. You might want to repair it if it has lost its durability along the way, because we do want to make sure that we have it, in particular for the boss. The boss you really want to have a shield for is very helpful. So I would recommend you save, and then if you'd like to enter the temple, all you have to do is shoot the crystal switch that is just above the doorway. So do so, and then that will open the door and you can enter the temple. Now, otherwise, you can hang out with me, and I'm actually going to go back to the sky and get a whole bunch of optional stuff. And then we're going to come back here once we're more prepared, and we're going to enter the temple. So join me for the next video, guys, and I will show you how to do a bunch of cool stuff in the sky. No, raid. Why raid? Why? Why must you do these things? Oh, Why raid? Yes. This is the part where I need Terry and her little face. I don't have that emote, otherwise I would do that. Start on land somewhere. We're gonna start doing that. Yes, Terry, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. I was hoping you were still here so you could do that.